these are my people, and this is my land. This is what we pray for, and this is God's plan. And if you ain't from here, then you won't understand. This is my country, and this is who I am. So welcome to my house.
All right. Welcome to episode 1 of the Southern Public Podcast. My name is Doug Jernigan, and I'll be your host for the night. Go ahead and go around the table and introduce everybody.
All right, we'll start here.
Yep.
I'm Jamie Burton.
I'm Duane Cook.
Joel Hoskins.
Josh Grace.
Shane Coon.
All right. That's us. So Duane, Joel, Josh, and Shane are part of, Flobama Outdoors. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, and a store close to you. No, I'm joking.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Soon.
Maybe
So-
soon.
So we're going to go just kind of, the intention of this was just to, we all hunt together and just kind of, thought about getting everybody together. Let's, we'll just BS and talk about hunting and share some stories and some tips and strategies. I mean, we're not world-class buck hunters by any means.
We try to be.
Well, I mean, we're public land hunters. We hunt in the South Panhandle of Florida. So, I mean, we get what is offered to us.
Sometimes we're meat hunters.
Right.
You need to meat.
Man, I will swack one. I ain't got a problem with it. So.
Oh, no, not at all.
No.
So, Jamie, so tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm originally from South Florida, so we didn't do a whole lot of hunting down there. But when I moved up to the Florida Panhandle, I started hunting at the age of 30. So I am the old man in the group at 54.
Oh, wow. That's the grandpa.
Yeah, that's fair.
I can't say anything. I'm only 2 years younger, so.
Right. So South Florida, I kind of grew up surfing and fishing. Grew up in the Everglades down there, and moved up here when I was 30. Met some guys up here that hunted and had an interest in it, and man, that's been 24 years. Yeah, 24 years. So I started at 30 and still have hunted almost as long as you guys who have hunted your whole life. But yeah, that's kind of my story, real brief. Since I got into hunting up here, started out shooting a gun, killed my first deer with a gun, and I was like, this hunting thing's pretty easy. That wasn't so bad. But hunting public land, it's certainly challenging. So having guys like you all here, we kind of share stories and tips and ideas and places. So it's paid off for me. I gotten into bow hunting pretty quick once I started. So I've kind of been addicted to that. And Doug and I have killed many deer together. So I'm looking forward to hunting with you guys for sure.
Yeah, same here.
Absolutely.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Duane?
I'm from, Niceville, Florida, born and raised here. Hunted public land all around Northwest Florida, South Alabama. Growing up, I remember, before I went to school, in elementary school, me and my dad go riding around the woods and try to shoot something out the window with a bow. Back in the day, the bows weren't that small. It was a lot harder. He had to try to jump out of the truck. It didn't ever work. He never killed anything.
Yeah, but your dad was a buck-killing fool.
He was.
Back in the day, he used to be.
Yes.
Yep.
Um,
Especially with that muzzleloader.
yeah, he loved a muzzleloader, and it got me to love a muzzleloader hunting. Now, I killed my first buck when I was 12 years old with a muzzleloader, and it's an old antique octagon barrel. It kicked like a mule. Aiming behind the shoulder, I shot the deer behind the ear.
Right.
Hey, it worked.
I blew his skull out.
He still does that to this day.
There ain't
So-
no tracking.
No
There ain't
So,
no
so
tracking.
your dad was a swamp hunter. What happened to you?
I
You're like high and dry.
took a different route.
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I've seen and over the years I've learned how to scout and look for different things, and hunt public land is fun. It's challenging, but it's fun and it's rewarding. when you put in the work and you start middle of the summer when it's 105 degrees, nobody else wants to go out and walk 5-6 miles. There's only one guy I know that wants to go out and do it with me, and that's with Josh. You know, and we put many a miles on the ground scouting, and it's paid off for us. I ain't saying we've killed world record bucks, but we've killed bucks that we thought and that we still believe are true trophies for Northwest Florida.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Northwest Florida's not known for giant bucks.
No.
Nope.
You kill something over 100 inches around here, that's great.
Well, how many times have you met someone who has hunted 15, 20 years and still has never killed a buck?
There's quite a few.
Yeah,
Right.
You meet them every year.
You know,
Yeah.
but you know, they don't put in the work that we do.
Right.
It's our passion. You know, my wife, we've been together 10 years now. We've been married for 5. And the first time she met my mom told her, "You're going to be a hunting season widow." My wife laughed. She goes, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Oh, when October comes around, he's not going to be home."
That's fair.
She didn't think it was going to be true. She learned very quickly.
They all do.
I would take off work and I'd hunt 30 days straight for archery season. Hunting's my passion.
That's awesome.
All right, Joel. Mr. Shy Man. Come on.
Well,
he has a sweet mullet, by the way. I wish y'all could all see this listening to this.
Yes.
We'll post some pictures.
All right.
I'm born and raised in Niceville, Florida, and I hadn't quite been hunting as long as a lot of y'all, but I started hunting when I was probably 18.
And how old are you?
I'm 42.
Okay.
Damn, you're catching up.
So yeah, I've been hunting quite a while now, but
And you, I mean, for hunting, what is that, like 24 years? If you're 42, you started when you were 17, so about 25 years.
about 18, something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've killed some good bucks for.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
There's been years this son gun right here has had a lucky horseshoe up his butt, and he has killed a pile of bucks.
I will
And two in a pile. I mean,
I will tell everyone sitting at this table and everyone that's listening to this, Joel is like the king of killing 2 in a pile.
yes, he is.
Yeah, because me and Duane had to drag him out one day.
As long as I've hunted, I've killed 2 deer in one pile, and that was 2 does just a few years ago in Florida, back before we got the 5 deer
Same
limit.
here.
You know,
Same
that was
here.
the first year I've ever killed 2
And
deer in a pile.
Joel, how many times have you killed 2 bucks in a pile?
How many years in a row have you done it? I know it's been a
that
few.
was 2 years in a row.
That was it,
You
just the
didn't do
2
it
years.
last year.
But I've killed 2 does in a pile several times.
I haven't.
With
I never had the
with my
chance.
bow.
I've killed several in a pile like that.
Now-
Losing.
And to be fair, I'm not going to say that the opportunity hasn't been there for me to kill 2 in a pile. I've just never. So, I started dating my ex-wife when I was like 17. So it was just her and my daughter, for 20-something years. She didn't eat red meat. So, I mean, I was realistic about how much deer meat was I going to eat, Continue.
Oh,
Joel's a little nervous, so.
Yes.
Joel's nervous. We'll go to.
And we're not going to edit
We'll
that.
go to Josh.
We're not
Yeah.
going to edit that.
Oh,
by
we're
the way.
editing.
Not at all.
No, I mean, all right, so you're 42 years old, been hunting for about 25 years, grew up in Niceville, Florida, basically hunting the Panhandle and South Alabama leases.
What's your favorite type of hunting? You like archery hunting, gun hunting, muzzleloading?
Dynamite.
whatever.
What type of hunting you like?
I like pretty much whatever's in season. I mean,
Truck.
I will tell you, Joel loves bow hunting until the end of bow season, and then
I'm ready to shoot a muzzleloader.
it's exactly. It's been probably 3 or 4 years in a row. We've all received a text that said, "I am ready to tote a gun."
Yeah. I mean, it all has its special thing, I mean, I like getting them close with a bow, hunting that food source early, and then I'm ready to reach out and touch something.
Well, when
Let
you
some smoke fly.
right when you see a deer or a buck 100 yards out, and you're like, if I had a gun.
Oh yeah,
right
that
now,
happens all the time.
yeah,
But-
that deer would
That
be
happens
mine.
a lot.
So, we'll go ahead, Josh. We'll circle around and then get into our passions.
Absolutely. I mean, we all have different passions, but my name is Josh Grace. I grew up in Niceville, Florida, like a lot of other people that are sitting around this table. I had a pretty, I think, typical for people that get into hunting pretty much. I mean, my dad was a hunter for many, many years, even before I was born. My dad started dog hunting and kind of got out of that. So, but my dad was a big gun hunter. I mean, my dad still to this day will hunt with a Remington 1100 shotgun. He will not tote a rifle, and he'll hunt with a muzzler with open sights, and
Good
with
old
iron
days.
sights.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Good old days.
So I grew up kind of in the industry or in the lifestyle, so to speak, of hunting because my dad did it from the time I was born, even before I was born. So I can remember many a day sitting beside a pine tree with him hunting. So he kind of brought me up in it. But I mean, even to this day, still growing up, I will pretty much hunt whatever's in season between rifle, muzzleloader, bow. But the special thing is, and I know Duane sitting across the table from me, is that I never bow hunted at all. My dad still does not bow hunt. I was not brought up bow hunting, ever.
Josh hated bow hunting back in the day.
Hated it.
Tree huggers.
No, he
No,
had a,
no.
he had a PSE Nova.
No,
One of the
I will-
cheapest bows you could buy.
I will tell the story.
I had one.
So where we hunt, and I've always been a public land hunter pretty much my entire life. Have never really had a lease or private land to go to. I've just always kind of been on public land. So back around 9/11, the area that we hunt on public land was going to outlaw all hunting and then outlaw just gun hunting. So it was going to be bow only. So I was still under the age where I couldn't even drive at the time. I was still going with my father. So my dad bought me a PSE Nova from Kmart, actually, in Niceville, Florida. And it was in a box, and I think it cost $80 to actually purchase that bow.
That's a deal.
It came with aluminum arrows, a True Glow sight that I'm fairly certain probably cost $10, and no peep sight. So I put the thing together myself at 15 years old. Had no idea. I've never even seen a bow before. I had no idea what I was doing, but it had directions.
This is facts. This is true.
I put this bow together with no peep sight and actually would shoot it and be accurate at 20 yards with no peep sight because I didn't even know you needed a peep sight. Had no idea.
Right.
None.
That's awesome.
So I hunt, and that was my dad bought that for me because he said, "Well, if you can hunt, and I'll just take you out there and I'll go with you, but I won't obviously tote a gun, but I'll take you hunting." So I'm very fortunate with that. My dad actually was going to sacrifice and at least take me hunting, but they ended up instating hunting in that season. But that was my first foray into the world of bow hunting, and I think that was a horrible experience looking back on it.
Well, just to add to it, we would skip school a lot back in high school.
Really,
And
don't tell
the
anybody.
first place
Don't
we
tell
went to-
anybody that. Jesus
Children
Christ.
don't listen to that.
We went in the woods.
Edit.
We was always in the woods. We were watching deer, pigs, whatever. And come archer season, he hated archer season. He didn't like hunting with a bow, but he liked being in the woods. And if that was the way he could kill something, he'd go with his bow. And I always told him, I was like, man, once you kill your first deer with a bow, you'll be hooked. I killed my first deer with a bow at 15. He's a little bit younger than me. Josh is.
By a year.
I was hunting, but once he finally got into it, he hit it off. And when he killed his first deer, I was there with him when he killed his first deer with a bow. And I'll tell you what, he has been hooked ever since.
So do you hunt more with a bow than a rifle these days? or?
I actually hunt more with a bow now than I ever will with a rifle. I almost prefer it to where I don't. The only reason, and I've told Duane this, the only reason I really actually even gun hunt anymore on public land where I do is just to be able to hunt with my dad still.
Yeah.
If it really wasn't for him and wanting to go like he does, I would probably be strictly a bow hunter. And that's just kind of that passion that instilled.
When you've killed a deer with a bow, when you start toting a gun again, you're like, I kind of feel like I'm cheating now.
Oh yeah.
Because with the bow, they got to get so
Almost
close.
Too easy.
And that's even with everyone that's sitting here, that also translates into hunting public land. I've got a little bit of private land, right around the area here, and I've taken a few does and killed them off that property, but it's not really a challenge.
Right.
It's not even fun, and I enjoy the fun of scouting and of figuring out and of trying to figure out public land more than I actually do even hunting and killing on private land. To me, I enjoy the scouting almost as much as I do the the killing.
It's more like hunting public land. You feel like you've accomplished something when you kill a deer,
Absolutely.
and it's a true hunt.
Yeah.
When you're on private property, especially here in Florida, you can
Corn.
you can bait, you can
Yep.
put corn up. You kind of can figure, all right, the deer's going to be here at 7:30, so it does take that aspect out of it. But don't get me wrong, I'll shoot a deer,
regardless.
right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
Same thing. I mean, public land. There's nothing like hunting public land. I mean, it's challenging. It gets frustrating, but in the same token, it's very, very rewarding. So,
Yeah, for
you know,
sure.
And what's so cool about the people around this table is I think everybody that's on this podcast and is sitting here with me kind of feels the same way, that, you know, we all hunt public land, but we also, I know all of us probably grew up watching Jackie Bushman and Bill Jordan and,
Right.
and
Oh,
Michael
yeah.
Waddell and David
Yeah.
Blanton hunt
All of them.
Montana and hunt Iowa and kill these big bucks. And I know for me personally, and I know it's probably the same with all y'all, I would watch that when I was younger when it came on TV, and I love watching it. But to me, that wasn't real hunting to me.
It was a false expectation.
Yeah, real hunting to me was hunting on public land and having to go through a check station and turning my license in. And
Right.
the legal buck back then, I think, was a 5-inch spike,
Yeah, 5 inches above the hairline.
5 inches
Yep.
above the hairline spike. And I remember being excited to see a 5-inch spike and killing a 5-inch spike. That was the greatest thing ever to me. You would have thought that I had killed a 150-inch Boone and Crockett buck in the Midwest.
Right.
Right.
It was hard to relate to the guys that are
Yeah,
shooting those big
and,
monster
and
bucks.
that's what I think the kind of what I hope everyone takes away from this podcast is that, you know,
That's what we do.
We're trying to bring what we think is real hunting for every person
Right.
kind of to life.
Shane?
I'm from Niceville, Florida, just like most of the other guys here. Grew up hunting with my dad as a little kid. Go sit in the woods with him. You know, either running dogs, sitting in the stalking areas. You know, things like that on public land. Did hunt a little bit of private property from time to time, and you know, just absolutely love it out here. It's you know, like all Josh and Duane and said, you know, we start in July, and that's when, you know, our blood starts pumping then. You know, we're ready, and October can't get here fast enough.
Right.
I mean, it's just like, hurry up.
Yeah,
You'll-
month becomes, you're like, when our hunting season ends, you're like, God damn, we got like 7 more months before we get to hunt again. Next thing you know, you're like, holy crap, hunting season starts in like a month and a half.
Right.
That's awesome.
And for a lot of
Yeah.
us,
You'll-
it almost becomes a year-round pursuit. I mean, if that's a good word for it, because
You guys,
we
y'all will age out of that July scouting thing.
Actually, we won't
Yes,
because
sir.
you know. Because here's the thing: even after deer season's out, you know you're in between deer and turkey season. Because in Florida on public land, you only have a fall turkey season
Spring turkey.
or spring turkey season. I'm sorry, a spring turkey season. So when we leave the cameras out a lot of times from the end of deer season till turkey season. We go check them then.
Yep.
You know, just what made it through the year, and there's a lot of times you're like, all right, well, I got quite a few bucks that made it. Let's see what they're going to be next year. But there's a lot of people, they're not going to go out there and walk when it's 105, 110 degrees outside.
No,
You know, and we'll
see a
walk
lot of that buck
miles.
sign.
I mean, there's been
Miles.
miles that we've actually just.
If you
walked.
ever go with Joel, you better be ready to walk at least 7 to 10 miles.
Yeah, because I put a tracker on one of our apps, and it was a long way. And
Joel don't walk straight. He zigzags. He
Yeah.
looks at a map the whole time, walks in the spider webs. He'll scream like a little girl.
Hey.
And you better carry
Hey, I'm-
carry
I'm-
a life straw with you
Dude,
behind a creek because you will run out of water.
I am an instant ninja when it comes to spider
yeah.
webs.
Oh yeah.
Well, Doug, have you,
Snakes, whatevs, but spiders, those little.
See, that's
Creepy
me.
crawly mothers.
That's me. I can handle snakes all day.
Yep.
I don't like
So-
none of them.
Yeah, we know. We saw Joel do the old spider dance last year on
But-
one
but
of our
that's-
scouting expeditions.
That's part of what we take in as far as hunting, you know, Northwest Florida, South Alabama. We have the hot weather. It's hot, humid.
And it's hot.
I mean, it's
through-
hot.
Who wants to go out and walk miles in the woods where it's thick because everything's green from the spring and the summer? Who wants to walk out in that?
Ticks,
Not a lot of people.
everything, you know.
We do. We love it.
Well,
You know.
It's because you're still young.
that's what I said. You'll age out of that July camera scouting.
Now, you'll
3
drive
miles
around in your truck, you know, look for deer.
right?
But
But I'll tell you what, Josh can tell you, when we start pulling trail cameras and we look at pictures and you got them nice bucks
yeah, get your fire.
and you watch them
Oh man,
and you get pictures of them when they're 3-4 inches, you know, worth of velvet horns and they just grow to something big. I mean, we get excited. We're like little kindergartners, you know,
Yeah,
we get excited.
some of the pictures we got last year, we were just like, where did this guy come?
So yeah,
I mean, just
I can't
mean,
wait
just
to put some
absolute
cameras out in some of
studs.
them
Because
spots.
I mean, some of these bucks were just like, what happened? When did this guy get down here from another state? Because I mean,
Or we have a camera,
Absolutely
or
big.
we have a camera in a spot, getting pictures of fine bucks. The next thing you know, they're logging it.
Yep. And
you
all of a
got-
sudden you get log skidders on camera, and it's like, now what do we do?
And the
Well, it
skidder's
looks like we
actually
gotta
hitting the camera as it's driving by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's
There was
part
some
of
good-
public
some
land.
It's
good
public
bucks
land.
on
You got to
that.
try to find them again, and it starts all over, even if it's in the middle of the season or it's right
Yeah.
before hunting season.
Well, have you?
No, I
right,
haven't.
your turn.
Haven't introduced myself other than so.
Have at it.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
Doug. Go ahead,
So,
Doug.
I would say that I grew up in the Panhandle. Came to Niceville in I think just before y'all were born, around 1985, somewhere in there. My dad was in the Army. I actually cut my teeth hunting Fort Benning, Georgia. Killed my first deer on Eglin Air Force Base, running dogs. So probably around 1996 or so, my wife at the time bought me a Remington 1100, or no, a Remington Model 700 BDL 30-06 for Christmas, and took it out for the first time, set up on a decoy on the loop road, and shot a little illegal buck. It was a 4-point,
Like you used a
rifle.
a decoy.
Yeah, no. Yeah, for real.
like a
Yeah,
Like-
so I had an
like a 3D target kind of decoy.
it was a
or-
3D target, and I took
You were ahead of your time. son.
yeah, man. I took an 8-point deadhead that I had found and cut the horns off of it. And I don't know if y'all have ever seen what they call a furniture screw, but a furniture screw is a wood screw that goes
Threaded
out
on
both directions.
Yeah.
And so I drilled a pilot hole into those horns, stuck them into that 3D target, and set it out on an old logging road.
Now, Doug is also the guy that would get some plywood and build a lock-on stand out of plywood and 2x4.
Well,
And
Now,
so-
wait,
I've
back
built
in the
many
day,
of those.
So now,
my dad's done many
so
of
now
those.
the stand I shot this buck out of was about a 20-foot 2x4 ladder stand with a boat seat in it.
Man, you were-
Swivel boat seat with a parachute hanging off of it for camouflage. So the buck come out and I shot him. He saw that decoy, and he was a little 4-point. He saw that decoy and he was like, "Holy shit, I got to get out of here," you know. So he literally squatted down and basically belly crawled till he thought he was safe, where he could get away from that decoy. And he stood up and he would walk about 10, 15 steps and he'd look back. And so I'm enjoying. I'm like, laughing. You know, just it's cracking me up. And so he gets to the point that he's fixing to hit some thick stuff, and that's my last chance to kill him. So I put the crosshairs on him and shot him and dropped him in his tracks. And it was when I was done, when it was all said and done, I was like, you know, the rifle took the fun out of it. And
it's over so quick.
Right. So I put that rifle in my gun cabinet and picked up my bow, and I've bow hunted ever since. And that's my passion. I absolutely just eat up bow hunting.
So let's do this. Let's go around the table and let's ask you, what's the first deer that you killed on public land? No.
The first deer I killed
Yes. The first deer that you killed on public land.
was a cow horn spike being run by a pack of dogs.
Jamie.
Shoot, mine. My first hunt was up here in the Panhandle, and I moved back to South Florida, and I was addicted to hunting at this point. You know, I hunted up here for a year and a half, bought my first bow. Actually, my girlfriend, now wife, bought me. It was a Bear Epic Extreme. So when I moved back to South Florida, I started scouting places in South Florida, and you talk about hard hunting. Holy cow. So hunting up here compared to South Florida, it's night and day. It's like here to Midwest. It's all swamp. It's all wet. It's palm trees. So the first deer I ever killed, actually I take that back. The first deer I ever killed was here, Northwest Florida. The first deer with my bow was in South Florida, and I was sitting in a sorry.
Got to
guys.
talk in the mic.
Thank you,
Talk
Doug.
into the microphone.
Thank you. Getting excited about my stories, man. So the first deer I killed with my bow, I was in a palm tree
In a palm tree?
in a
Yeah.
palm tree.
Oh,
a
my
legit
Lord.
palm tree. And every place I had scouted, I went there. There was somebody there. I remember seeing some scrapes down this oak hammock, and I pulled off the road, walked 100 yards in, jacked up a palm tree, and I'll be damned if an hour or two after daylight, a little basket rack 8 and a spike came in, and the 8 got broadside at 20 yards, shot him, and he like mule kicked and then stood there. And I was like, first deer I ever shot with a bow, I'm like, holy shit. He's just standing there and blood's just like pouring out of him. I'm like, oh my God. And of course, I'm hunting by myself. I'm camping out. Got nobody with me. He runs off. I get down and I start trailing him, and it's dark now. And I hear hogs are everywhere down in South Florida and up here as well. I hear a bunch of hogs the direction he went. And I'm like, oh, fucking, I ain't going in there. Hogs are mean. I'm out here by myself. So anyway, to answer your question, my first buck I ever killed was an 8-point here in Northwest Florida. That was with a 30-30, 1967 Marlin 30-30 lever action. First buck I killed with my bow was in South Florida, sitting in a palm tree with my bear, Epic Extreme. And I was more proud of that bow buck because I scouted that on my own. I camped out. I did everything by myself. And it was very rewarding. I enjoyed that.
Absolutely.
I remember my first buck. I was 12 years old. We was hunting on Eglin. It was the last day of hunting season. My uncle had been hunting this spot, had a big buck he had been hunting all year. And my dad set me up. I had an old Worn Sweat climber. It was plywood bottom, plywood seat.
With
had
the,
the old
with
boomerang.
the boomerang back.
Yeah, the old boomerang.
Old bladed.
You know, I was 12 years old. I got maybe 8 feet off the ground.
Can you
I looked at
imagine?
my dad. I was like, hey, I'm good. You know, my dad said, all right, I'm going to go this way. So my dad walked off. And I was sitting there. I was with a Thompson. I think it was a Thompson. Old muzzler, octagon barrel. You had to pull the hammer back. It was old. And
Probably a Hawkins.
yeah,
Wood grain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was old.
A Hawkins or a Kentucky.
Yeah. Well, this little buck come across the creek and come up at like 30 yards. And my heart's pumping. I'm trying to set my gun up. You know, I put the sights on him. I think I'm aiming behind the shoulder, but apparently I was looking at the horns the whole time. A little 3-point. I shot, he hit the ground. Boom. It's like, I got him. I'm trying to reload. Bullet won't go down the barrel about an inch. The tip of it's still sticking out. He goes to kick him again. I'm freaking out, thinking, oh, I got to shoot him again. Well, I didn't never shoot him again. He just laid there. I climbed down real quick, ran over, looked at him. Had to wait an hour for my dad to get to me. But no, I shot him behind the ear, and the bullet actually came out between the horns. So you could take a spread. You could say it was 6 inches, or you could say it was 20 inches. Right. It depends on how you want to say how big he was.
Right.
You know, and that was my first buck on Eglin, 12 years old. And ever since then, I've been more than hooked.
Can you imagine now giving a 12-year-old kid a Worn Sweat climber and saying, here you go, take
Right.
off?
Yeah, they look. I mean, nowadays even us, we look at like, that's dangerous.
Sketchy.
It's
Well, and
made out of plywood.
Right, and so the safety harness that came with those was
There was no safety harness back then.
no, they did. They came. I bought one. It would have been 89, I think, was when I bought my first climber, and it was Worn and Sweat, and it come with a quote unquote safety harness, which was a strap that went around the tree.
Just around your waist?
Right. It went
Turn
around
it
the
into a top coat.
went around the tree. It had about a 8 or 12-inch lead that come from that strap to the strap that basically went around your waist or your chest. Don't imagine too many people survived hanging from that very long.
Well, see,
No,
and I think
not
the
for long.
Worn Sweat I was in was a luxury one because you could actually take the seat off, the wooden seat, and move it to where you sit with your back against a tree. And you had 2 metal clips that you would undo, and you could take the back part and put it down as a footrest.
Yeah. Yeah, you were in
That was an
Cadillac.
updated one.
That was
That was
high.
a Cadillac.
Yeah.
High tech.
Oh, my Lord.
Joel?
Joel, what about your first deer?
Well, my first deer was in as far as buck goes, I was in Union Springs, Alabama, and
Private land.
on some private land, and little old Spike come in there, and I was pretty excited. I was probably 90, 98, 97, somewhere in there, and just broke Spike. Couldn't even be a full, two good horns. Had one broke. But that was my first one. Nothing special, but pretty exciting.
I'll tell you, I would have had more first buck stories if I didn't miss them from buck fever. I have probably more buck fever stories than first buck stories, but my first buck was actually a 3-point on Eglin. I had with a Remington 1100 12-gauge shotgun because that's all my dad hunted with. That's what I hunted with. So I had scouted this area and found this big fighting area, huge fighting area, probably the size of a truck hood. And I thought I really had something. This was the most buck sign I'd ever found, being that young. So I found me a pine tree, and I started climbing this pine tree. Well, I had been there maybe an hour one morning, and lo and behold, here come 3 bucks on a line. And the first one was a 3-point. The second one was a spike, and the third one may have been a 4-point. I don't know. It wasn't really big. I wasn't waiting around. But I had missed so many deer before that and hogs that I remember aiming at this deer, and I think I am behind the shoulder, and pulled the trigger on that Remington 1100, and the deer dropped immediately that quick and just hit the dirt and didn't kick, nothing, just dropped. And I remember being so excited, like, oh Lord, I finally killed a deer. And I actually was about 6 inches off because I hit it in the neck and completely broke its neck and dropped the deer. But hey, that was it. So that was my first deer. It wasn't anything special, but it was very special.
You guys had it easy. All y'all's is, I mean, all your first deer were standing still. Mine had about 15 walkers behind it, and I was hunting with a single shot 20 gauge.
Oh, my Lord.
And I, believe it or not, I shot him twice.
I didn't kill my first deer with a shotgun till I was probably 18, 19.
Yeah.
But at that time, I'd killed quite a few deer with my bow, and I killed quite a few deer with my rifle. I didn't really start hunting hard with my bow. I was 15 when I killed my first, or 16 when I killed my first buck with a bow, or my first deer. And the first deer I ever killed with a bow was a 7-point. I killed on Eglin. I had a 7-point, 2 8-points come walking in. And growing up, my dad always told me, you have multiple deer come in, whichever one you look at you're going to shoot first, that's the one you focus on. So I did. I had a 7-point and 2 bigger 8-points behind him.
Well, that was the first one.
I shot him at probably 8 yards.
So my first bow kill, I was in my early 20s, and I was hunting Tyndall Air Force Base. My brother-in-law and I had gone over there and scouted and seen some, amazing bucks, and everything there was archery only. So I went to a pawn shop and bought, it was an Indian bear cub bow, had like wood laminated limbs on it. And the guy that owned the pawn shop, he was like, just grab you a handful of those arrows out of the bucket, so that you've got some arrows. So I didn't know any better, man. I'm shooting 22 17s, 22, whatever.
All different lengths.
Right,
Right.
Aluminum arrows. And, at 30 yards, you'd see, the arrow would have like a 10-foot arch to it before it, So my brother-in-law set up with some lock-ons right off of a playground. Like you'd sit in your stand and you'd look over and you'd see kids on the playground. And so my brother-in-law, I see him motioning like behind me, and so I turned my head and I look behind me, and all I see is white ears coming across the pavement. And it was probably 7 or 8 does.
It's right by the housing.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And so 7 or 8 does come across the road, and we had both agreed that if more than one deer was coming through, we would let all of them pass so that the other one got a chance to kill one, and we would shoot that last one. And the big old boxcar doe, she was in the front, and she stopped right in front of me. And I looked at her, and I was like, man, I can't do this. I've got to shoot her. They're going to find me. And so I drew back and buried the pin on her, and released, and I see my arrow sticking in the ground. I was like, well, son of a bitch, I missed, I'm mad, and so she runs about 10, 15 yards and stops. So I literally have time to knock up another arrow, draw back on her. This is well before, range finders. I draw back on her, bury my pin on her again, release. Son of a bitch, I missed again, and I threw the bow, threw it through the woods. I'm like, this is bullshit.
This bow hunting's bullshit.
Yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done with this bow hunting shit. So my brother-in-law, he's over in his stand laughing. Just rolling. And so I crawl down and I go over and find my bow, and it's the, back then you had the metal plate that had the metal pins, and you had to unscrew the nut on the back of it and adjust it. So I'm checking to see if my pins are broke, and so I go over to get my first arrow I shot, and it's covered in blood. I'm like, well, son of a bitch. When I watched Cowboys and Indians, the Indians would shoot the Cowboys and the arrow would stick in them about 2 inches, So I guess that was my thought process was, because this was before YouTube and TV shows and,
Well, how many times has someone asked you about bow hunting and they don't realize the arrow goes
all the way
through them?
Right.
Like, no, that arrow's
not all
going
the time.
That arrow.
Well, no, but you grew up watching
you think
Cowboys and Indians,
it goes in a couple inches and just stays
right,
there.
and so I'm like, there's blood on this arrow, so I go over and grab my other arrow, and it's covered in blood too, so my brother-in-law, he says, I think I heard it, crash over here, and so sure enough, shot her twice, and I was hooked. That was, I love it.
So when I started archery hunting, my dad, we went to a little pawn shop. It was somewhere in between, I think, Crestview and Milton. I don't even know. And they had this little, it was a green bow. I can remember it had the metal pins like what you're saying. And I shot a few times, had no peep sight, just like what he said about his bow. And you had the metal pins. I thought I was pretty good at 20 yards. And we was hunting on Eglin, and I watched my dad shoot and miss a deer. The deer came up to me at 20 yards as a spike. I'm shaking like a leaf in a hurricane. I was nervous. I shot one shot. The deer stood there and looked around. I grabbed another arrow, shot again. The deer jumped. Went about 2 steps and stopped, just looked around. I shot 3 times at him. He walked off. I ain't cut a hair on him yet. And from there, I wanted to throw my bow, like what you said. I wanted to throw it. I was blaming it on the bow. Afterwards, I'm like, it's all my fault. But that's what got me hooked into it. It's
the challenge.
Well, I was 13 when that happened. I killed one deer when I was 12. At 13, I missed that deer. When I was 13, I didn't kill a single deer that whole year. Ever since then, ever since I was 14 years old, I've killed a deer every year. And
Why you got to brag? Why you got to tell everybody you killed deer?
Because my dad did a lot of work for me. My dad, back in the day, used to be awesome at deer.
Yes.
He used to be great at scouting. When I was 15, hunting, we started hunting another spot. It was a primitive weapon only area. You could only hunt with a bow or muzzleloader. And I was using my uncle's muzzleloader. My dad found a spot, had some scrapes. He set me up in it. First afternoon, buck come through, a little 6-point, shot him. The next afternoon, I went to the same spot. Had a big cow horn spike come in. I shot him in the same spot. He was staying in the same spot that 6-point was, but facing the opposite direction. Couldn't find him before dark. The next morning, went and found him. He had actually laid up in the creek. Got him out, gutted him. My dad goes, where are you going to hunt this afternoon? I'm going to go back to the same tree. Had a 7-point come in.
Seemed to pay off.
7-point on the same trail in the same spot. I had one bush that had blood from all 3 bucks. I shot a 7-point.
Well, that just
So do you hunt any of the? Because your dad was he loved those old beaver ponds.
So my dad is really big on primitive weapon. He loves hunting with a muzzleloader.
is he still hunting now?
Yeah, a little bit. So he's had some medical conditions. He can't walk a long ways. So last year got him a crossbow because he can't pull back a bow. His shoulder's messed up.
So it's kind of the roles have changed for you.
Yeah, yes.
That's good. You get to kind of pay him back now. That's awesome.
not even the end of the story, though. That
No.
was just $3. We're not done yet.
Oh,
That was just $3.
God dang.
Well, in between that, so the afternoon the afternoon I shot the spike. I went back the next morning to hunt, and it had been raining all night. Couldn't hear nothing. I hear a twig break, and I look over. There's a big 10-point, and all I can see is a head sticking out from behind an oak tree. And before I could get my gun up, he spooks. Well, went and found the spike. Then I killed the 7-point. That was on a Sunday. That Wednesday or Thursday, I can't remember if it was Wednesday. My dad woke me up that morning about 4 o'clock. Hey, you want to go hunting or you want to go to school? Like, what kind of dumb question is that? Let's go hunting.
Your dad sounds awesome.
So we went to a spot, and there's a couple scrapes. Set me up in. I was maybe 20 yards off a dim road. And that morning, I've seen some of the most deer I've ever seen. I've seen 21 does, and I killed a 9-point.
Dang.
I ended up shooting the 9-point twice with a muzzleloader. I had to shoot him over my shoulder, kind of trying to go around the tree as he went to run off, and I gut shot him. So I reloaded. I waited a few minutes. I was so excited. I got down. I went to look for him, and I found him. He was laying there licking himself. Blood just dripping down his back. He
Wish
gets
I could
up.
do that.
No, he gets up, and he's not going to run. He faces me and starts pawing at the ground like he's going to charge me. I shoot him again. He jumps in the air, and he starts running towards me. He gets about maybe 10 feet from me and just collapses. At this point, I'm so nervous. I done turned the muzzleloader around. I'm fixing to use it as a bat. I'm fixing to hit this son gun over the head like a bat.
So I've got a story kind of similar to that. I was hunting up in Paxton, private property, and I was hunting at my cousin's house, and so they had a stand. They had an area they called Gopher Ridge, and they literally had like they may not remember, but like the 70s kitchenette, like dinette little table that was like
I was born in 85.
Formica with the sparkles in it.
Yeah.
And the metal trim around it. So they literally had a table up in the top of this big ass oak tree.
And the chairs with that table kind of look like the ones
we're sitting in.
Yeah.
So you crawl, the 2x4 screwed to this big oak tree and climb up, and there was no chair to set in. You just kind of either set Indian style or whatever on this tabletop. So I'm sitting there about prime time, and there was my brother-in-law, again, my cousin, and we'd ask a buddy of ours. He calls, no, man, my wife's just pitching a fit. I'm not going to be able to go. I'm like, all right, man, well, when you take your panties off and, put on some boy shorts, then, come on. So anyways, about prime time, and I hear something coming, like, up the trail that I came in on. I'm like, what the hell is that? And I turn around and I look, and it's somebody in a blue jean jacket, wearing blue jeans, toting a shotgun.
I think they call that a Canadian tuxedo.
So it was that buddy that he had it out with his wife, and he was like, screw it, I'm going, So he drove from Seminole up to Paxton and shows up right at prime time. He was so pissed off when he left, he like literally left the house with like 2 buckshot. And so he comes up to my tree and he was like, dude, where can I go? I'm like, dude, it's like prime time. I said, I'd just go down this fence row and find a tree and climb up a tree, set on a branch. I don't know what to tell you. Have you got any shotgun shells? And I was hunting with the 308. And so I dig through my pack, and I literally had like 2 or 3 slugs. So I dropped those slugs down to him, and he chambers a buckshot, a slug, a buckshot, a slug. So he walks down, and I watch him. He climbs up in this pine tree on the fence row. That pine tree probably wasn't 15 foot tall. He's probably about 10 foot up in the air. And so I'm sitting there watching, and it's a cucumber field. It's not planted or anything like that, and it's got a creek that basically wraps the field. And 2 does come out of the corner on the other side of him, kind of cutting the field catty corner. And I'm like, well, we'll see. It's that time of the year, and I look up and I see just a stud come out of the wood line. I'm like, you son of a bitch. I knew he was going to kill that buck, So I'm sitting there, and I pick up my rifle, and I'd look through the scope, and I'd be, oh, you son of a bitch, man. If you weren't anybody else, I would have probably just shot the deer, And so I'm sitting there, and I'm like, come on, man. Shoot him, and I hear, and he doesn't move. And I'm like, holy shit, he is shooting at a different deer. Throw the rifle up on him, and I put the scope on him, and I'm just about to pull the trigger, and the buck just kind of does that, when he gets shot. And I'm like, what the hell? So I'm sitting there watching, and I see this blue jean body bail out of the tree. So he doesn't crawl down. He jumps out of the tree, knocks the branches and stuff out of the way as he's coming down. And so this cucumber is probably 4 or 5 foot tall. And I don't know, Shawnee's probably 5'2", 5'3". I don't know, So like he kind of disappears, and I hear, when the shotgun goes off, and I see him run back out to the fence row. I'm like, what the hell is he doing, you know? And so he's digging in his pocket, and he had his plug in it from dove hunting, so he only had 3 shells. He slug, buckshot, slug. So he had shot it 3 times, run back out, got out of the way, loaded it again, run back in, and he disappears. You can't see anything. All you can hear is, and then, and he runs back out, and it's like the old Toyota commercials, you know, where they jump up and click their heels, you know, and that's what Shawnee was doing. And I'm like, oh, you son of a bitch, you know. So I climbed down and go. I'm like, what in the world was going on? So his first shot was a slug, and it just right through him. The buck didn't even realize he was so close. He didn't even realize he was hit. When he laid that buckshot on him, you know, he's like, oh shit, you know. And then the second shot was a slug, and he went down. Well, when Shawnee run in there, he hadn't reloaded his gun. You know, he runs in there, and literally, like you said, that buck just growls, you know, and he comes running out of the cuckaburs, loading his shotgun. He runs back in, and you know, ends up having to shoot him 2 more times to kill him. So he drove a Ford Escort up there.
Is he related to you at all? Is he? No? Cause,
No.
You know, all right, that just reminds me of a story about your dad.
Oh, my dad, yeah. So he was driving a Ford Escort, and took 5 of us to pick this buck up and put him on the top of the Escort. So his wife was already pissed out at him because he left and went hunting. When he got home, by the time he drove from Paxton back to Seminole, it caved the roof in. I would guarantee you this buck went 300 pounds. So
in Paxton,
Florida,
it's just south of Alabama.
Yeah,
just south.
right
It's
on
on
the
the
line.
borderline.
So, and then, so my cousin was so pissed off. That was the biggest buck ever killed up there. It was a 13 point. Yeah, I don't know that we ever hunted back up there again. He was like, yeah, no, you know, we call him, hey Tony, when we come up, no, man, you know, I got a lot to do. So
Right.
that kind of ended that.
So here's the question I have for everybody, and we'll go around the table. What's your most memorable hunt with a hunting partner, with a buddy? Something, you know, a deer that you didn't kill, or maybe that you did kill, but your buddy was there with you.
Dude, you know,
I've
You
got
just went through
2.
your-
I was thinking as I'm listening to everybody's stories, I'm like, we literally could do a podcast on just stories for
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
forever.
Yeah, it'd be
Got a ton of them.
And that's kind of the purpose of this.
You know, and you know, Joel ain't said a whole lot, so let's listen to Joel's. So, what's your most memorable hunt that you've had? Rather, you know, with a buddy killing a deer, or you killing a deer with one of your buddies?
Well, I'd say probably a once-in-a-lifetime deal here. So hunting, I had found this spot, and it's always been super, super thick. And the public land, they went in and did a select cut. And I had found it.
Wait a minute. I'm going to stop you right there. Did he ask that question just to bring that story up so he
No,
can
no,
once
absolutely
again
not.
tell that story
No,
again?
absolutely
okay.
not.
All right. I just want
I didn't know that was the story.
I know exactly where this is going.
I know
Continue-
this story too.
Continue on.
Okay, so I had found this spot, and it, you know, select cut. It's always been super thick, and you know, you really just couldn't see much. You knew there was good bucks in there, and so it was opening weekend of gun season, and I'd been staying out of there. You know, just I didn't even really know if I was even going to be able to find a tree to climb with my climber. So got in there super early. It's a long walk, and got in there pitch black dark, and I'm kind of trying to keep my scent, you know, trying to keep the wind in my face when I'm walking in. It's kind of cool that morning, and so I'm walking down the edge of this cutover along the big woods,
Anybody need a beer?
Yes.
and all of a sudden, I mean, it's pitch black dark. I'm not even really using a flashlight, and deer just go absolutely running everywhere, and I've spooked everything, and I'm right there, probably within 100 yards of where I was thinking I'd be able to see really good if I could find a tree in the dark. Like I say, I mean, I knew that it was a good spot. I just didn't know for a fact of where I was going to be able to find a tree to climb. So I just kind of stood there, you know, waiting for things to kind of calm down. And I looked I turned my flashlight on, and I looked, and there was a tree right there, and I was like, man, I just ran everything off, you know. So I was like, I'm going to keep going where I wanted to go originally. So I went probably another 100 yards, and there was just huge pine tree. I mean, I was able to get probably 40 feet up. I mean, I was super, super high, and So, I got situated
High in the tree.
high in the tree.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So
It was
I got
really
got
high.
situated, and it's starting to crack daylight. It's still kind of dark, and I just have my binoculars, because it's going to cut the light, where I'll be able to see a little better. And I'm scanning, and probably across this cutover, it's maybe 125 yards, something like that across it. So I'm scanning, and keep in mind the deer, when they ran away from me, I kind of went the direction they ran. So I climbed the tree pretty quiet, whatever. So I'm scanning, and I look, and there is a buck, and I couldn't tell exactly what he was. I thought he was an 8-point, but he ends up being a 7, and he is just standing there broadside, probably 100 yards. So I kind of skipped ahead there, but before I started walking down in this place, I realized, because I've been hunting Alabama, I had no bullets for my 270. So this was opening weekend of gun. I'm about as unprepared as you can get.
It's right there around Thanksgiving. It's opening weekend of gun season in Northwest Florida.
So it is Thanksgiving.
So it's Thanksgiving weekend. It's
weekend.
opening weekend of gun. And I get to my spot where I'm fixing to have to walk a long ways, and I realize I have one bullet in my gun because my clip, I had taken all the shells out, and I put them back in my case.
A magazine,
whatever, in my camper at my hunting camp. So now I'm like, well,
You just have one in the chamber.
I got one in the chamber. That's it. So now I'm thinking, man, I can't go hunting with just one bullet. This is, but normally that's all you need.
One kill.
So I scrounge around in my center console, and I find one more bullet. Okay, so I'm like,
270. He's hunting with a 270.
all right, so that's all I got. So I'm sitting up there in the stand, and I got the 7-point, and it's pretty much still dark. I haven't even scanned around. I just know this is a legal deer. I'm shooting. So I shoot. Bow. Fire flies out of the barrel. I mean, it was still dark. So I'm like,
It
man.
wasn't dark. It was at the break of daylight.
Well, it's still
It was
dark.
30 minutes prior to sunrise. That's legal shooting.
It was legal.
It was legal shooting light, yes. So now there's white belly on the ground, deer's down. I'm like, man, I'm just shaking like a leaf. So I'm scanning I pick my binoculars up, and I'm looking. I just put my gun down, and I'm scanning, and I scan to the right, and there's a spike standing there looking at the 7-point who's kicking. And so I scan back to the left across him, and there's a 9-point, which I didn't know he was that big, but I knew he was bigger than the one that I just shot. And he's standing there probably 10 yards from the other buck, dead, looking at him. I'm like, oh my goodness. So I'm like freehand. I am shaking. I'm actually kind of shaking
Hold
now
on.
just thinking about this.
The 7-point was not dead.
He was down.
I will say that.
He was down.
but he was not dead.
And
Okay, so
so the people on the podcast can't see you talking with your hands.
yeah. But hey,
You keep hitting the arm, so we keep hearing the spring.
okay. So
He said he was shaking.
so buck fever has absolutely set in, and
It's set in again too. By the way.
And so now I have put my last shot in, and so I finally get situated and shoot the other buck, and he drops to the ground, and he's dragging himself towards the wood line, and I'm out of bullets, and I'm keep hitting the spring here.
So at that time, I get a phone call because we didn't know each other was hunting on Eglin. We didn't know each other was hunting at all that day. He called me because I just shot 2 bucks. I'm like, it just got legal shooting hours about 10 minutes ago. He's well, I got 2 bucks down. I was like, all right. I was like, well, I'll come to you here in a little bit and I'll help you. Not a couple of seconds later, he's still alive. I'm like, well, just give him time. He'll die. A little bit of time will go by. Maybe 2 minutes. He calls me. There's a coyote getting my deer. I'm like, shoot him. I ain't got no more bullets. I'm like, you ain't got no more bullets? How many times you shoot? He's, I only had 2 bullets. I'm like, who goes to a stand with 2 bullets?
That's all I had. That's all I had.
So he starts hollering on the phone. Hey, get away. Hey, leave him alone. He's yelling at this coyote, right? So and I'm like, if you got a knife, just climb down and go kill him. I ain't got a knife. It's in the truck. I'm like,
That's bad luck.
Hey, when you're prepared, you're not seeing nothing and you're not killing nothing.
No,
No.
it's bad luck to. It's
That is
bad luck
words
to
to live by Joel Hoskins.
no, and he's in one section, and I'm on the totally other end of it, and I got deer around me. They're a bunch of does, and I'm watching does. I'm like, God, I'm like, well, he needs me. I'm gonna climb down. So I climbed down. I left my climber. I was like, I got a whole box of 270 shells in the truck because I was rifle hunting, and I made it to where he was at. I pulled up at his truck. I'm like, where are you at from your truck? He goes, if you walk down the road, you see the chop on your right. I'm in that chop on the right. I was like, all right. So I start walking down the road. Da 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 da. Well, he didn't tell me there's a chop on your left. So when I called him back, I'm like, hey, I was like, you're past the chop on your left, right? He goes, yeah, it's the chop on the right. I was like, okay. So I kept walking down the road, got to the corner. 2 deer jumped up. One had horns, one didn't. Well, I ended up, freehand shooting and scared the stew out of him. Whatever. It was an 8-point. Well, when I walked out in the field, he's standing there flashing his orange, all paranoid. I didn't
Somebody's shooting at me.
That's what he thought. He thought
I was waving
thought-
arms.
That is public land.
It is public
I was
land. You
waving
can't
orange.
be worried about that.
So-
waving orange, waving arms. I was.
I got up there to him. He goes, what'd you shoot? I was like, I shot a buck. And he's still kind of like panic mode, And we look, his buck's laying there. He goes, he's right there. I'm like, well, he's dead. He goes, no, he's not. Well, the buck started kicking. So I had to put another round in to finish him off. And, it's all said. We started blood trail on his 9-point. He shot his 9-point, like literally 3 inches from his butthole. Up the backside.
Hey, he was facing away from me. I'm telling you.
So
It was actually a good shot.
I think it's funny. We started this portion of it, and Duane says, "Joel, you haven't been talking much. You go ahead." Joel gets about a quarter of the way
Yeah.
through it.
Duane
Dwayne jumps
finishes
in
the
there.
story.
Well, he's-
You know what?
he stopped.
You're
He
not
waited.
finishing this very
waited.
well. So let me.
All right. Go ahead and finish. Go ahead and finish the story, Joel.
So we find both bucks, take some pictures. We're all excited, and I'm like, man, I don't think that was a buck he shot. Because whenever he shot, I see deer running, and I pick my binoculars up because the deer are in the chop with me, like they're literally 150 yards from me. And so I look at my binoculars, and I'm like, man, that was does. I didn't see any horns at all. So I'm like, all right, well, I saw where the deer ran in the woods. I was like, you go back where you shot, and that way we can kind of get oriented on where we're at. So I'm walking the wood line, and keep in mind, this is the same spot where when I was walking in the dark, that's where all the deer jumped, was right there in that same exact spot.
Now, let me add a note. So the way this chop was, it had a turn right there.
And
So
a chop.
The chop.
Some people call it a clear
A
cut.
clear cut.
Okay.
So we'll say clear cut.
It's
So-
like a select cut. I mean,
Right.
it's
So-
not like just slick.
Yeah.
There's still trees.
So the wood line he was sitting on ran east and west, and it had a curve that went north to south. So the buck I shot actually went in right at that curve,
right in the point.
right at it.
So he goes back where he shot at, and I'm going, I'm just tracking the wood line and looking for running tracks running into the big woods. So, I'm like, all right, well, I think this is about where it was at right here. And so he's walking kind of towards me, and we're just trying to find out where it was at. And I pick up some running tracks, and then I see some blood. And it was kind of, it wasn't the greatest blood. You could tell it was kind of, a little bit dark, maybe some gut in it. I'm like, man, I said, this really doesn't look all that great. We might need to let this one lay up for a minute, and let's go ahead.
My comment was, I gotta have a rifle. I ain't worried. Let's go look.
Yeah, he did say that. So I was trying to talk him out of it, give the deer time. Let's go ahead. We already got 2 bucks down. We need to go ahead and get them out. It's a long way in here. He's like, well, let's just look up here and here, a little ways. We didn't go, less than 20 yards. And he's like, there he is. I see him. And the buck was kind of like laid up against like a pine tree. And he goes to stand up, and I'm like, shoot him. And then it was like immediate pow, and he's down for the count. And it was like celebration, 3 bucks down. It's just once in a lifetime.
Well, and
So-
2 of you shot one of them. Like you shot the original.
I killed 2 bucks that morning.
Well, I did too, though.
You killed one.
Well, there's only 3.
2 plus 2 is 3.
That's a good memory, hunting with a buddy, just going out of our way. But one of my top ones was hunting the Archer area, me and Josh, and we was pretty good ways apart. Josh had killed some deer with his bow, and we had one good buck on camera that he was kind of after his spot. He had a lock on. It ain't even been that long. we've been staying, what, hour and a half, 2 hours? Josh texts me, I just shot an 8-point. I was like, all right, I'm going to come down and get to you. Well, I had to go to my truck and drive about, I don't know, a mile to him. I get to him. Josh is shaking. I mean, he's shaking like a dog trying to patch a peach seed. And he goes, dude, I shot an 8-point. I was like, where'd he go? He goes, I don't know. When I shot him, he fell. He got up and he ran off. It's like, all right. So we got over there. No blood. Couldn't find a blood trail for nothing. Well, Josh walked off one way where he thought the buck went. I went a different way. And when I looked down the hill, I could see a white belly. I was like, damn, there's this deer. So I kind of walked halfway down to him. I was like, hey, Josh, come here. I think I found something. He came right to me and goes, what? I was like, what's that? And he goes, oh, shit, that's my deer. To see the look on his face and the excitement in him when he killed that deer was, I mean, that tops. I mean, even the story with Joel, I mean, that was an awesome memory I always keep. But to see the excitement on his face when he killed that big, that really nice 8-point on public land with his bow, I mean, that tops it.
See, and I would have to say that
I got to see that with Josh this past year too.
Both of those deer hold a
he
special
gets
place
excited.
on my wall, by the way. So.
Yeah, he gets really excited.
Oh, yeah.
He does.
I would say that mine did not directly end in a kill as far as memorable hunts,
And
my
some don't. Some don't. I mean,
So my first one was I was hunting. We were hunting the edge of planted pines, and I was hunting with a buddy of mine. And so it was a ridge, and the planted pines were on the south side of us there. And so I was hunting like right at the top of the ridge. He was about halfway down. And so we're bow hunting. We're close enough we can see each other. And so I'm looking, and I'm like, man, that looks like horns. And so like I said, he was facing to where he could see me. So, and this buck was coming up the hill behind him, and so I'm like trying to gesture, put my hands up over my head, buck. And so he kind of catches on, oh.
So you kind of look like a ballerina.
Right, and so
that's
he
public land hunting with your partner.
Right. So he grabs his bow and he slowly turns around, and I'm watching the whole thing play out, and I'm like, this is awesome, man. I'm gonna watch him kill this buck. And so he draws back and the buck spins and runs down the hill. I'm like, what the hell? He missed him. I saw the dirt fly up. So I grabbed my grunt call and I'm like, brr, brr. The damn buck turns around and comes back. And I'm like, check this shit out. It's happening, and I'm watching it. It's like watching it on TV, And so the buck comes back up again. He knocks up another arrow, draws back, zips it, dirt flies up again. I'm like, you son of a bitch, man. So I literally grab my grunt call again, blow my grunt call. The buck turns around and comes back up. So at that point, I think he didn't think that buck was going to come back. He had set back down, and I'm like, again, with hand gesture, buck, and so he stands up and the buck is like right there next to him. So the buck looks up at him and looks back down. Probably the stupidest buck out there. And so I'm like, well, at least, he's closer. So at least this time, maybe you'll kill him. Zips dirt again. Just I'm like, dude, I can't help you anymore.
How big's the quiver? How many you got in there?
Right, So the buck runs into the planted pines. Probably 30 minutes goes by, and another buddy, he was hunting on the south side of those planted pines. He's like, man, he texted me, I just shot a buck. He goes, you're not gonna believe it. He came up and he bedded up right behind me in the planted pines, and I shot him laying down. So we go and get on this blood trail, and that buck goes all the way down the hill. It's going to be the ridge that y'all were hunting over there across the creek from.
Yeah.
And
But you need to.
That-
I don't know.
so the ridge
We'll show you on
ridge
the
you
map.
shot
We'll
your
show you
buck
the
on.
map. There you go.
Oh, off the loop road.
Yeah.
The secret spot.
No, off of 6 Point Road.
Oh,
And the
okay.
Palmettos.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so Jason Hubbard was hunting the Palmettos, and Jason Holcomb was the one that shot the buck multiple times and missed him. So we go to tracking Jason Hubbard's, the buck he shot goes down into the creek. So I'm colorblind. So I've basically figured it out. I haven't mastered it, but I've studied it in all my years to the behavior of how a deer acts after he gets shot. And I've probably found more deer ahead of these guys blood trailing because, like, I'll just kind of hang back and, like, all right, so this is the blood trail. I think I know what he did. I'll scoot ahead and
Yeah, we're
deer.
back there on the blood on our
Right.
hands and knees, and You're like, I'm pretty sure he went this way, so I'm
Right.
just going to
Yeah,
walk.
Duane does that all the time too.
Yeah. So
I find a lot of deer for him.
So there's a damn toilet paper trail coming all the way down the ridge, and I'm like, that buck's in the water, So I bail off in the creek, and I'm walking down the creek, and sure enough, there he is. His last ditch effort was to bite the bank. He died with the grass in the bank of the tree, like, because the water's trying to pull him down, so he bites onto that. That's how he died.
Like a root hanging out.
No, like a clump of grass
Shit.
is what he bit into.
Wow.
So we, hey guys, I found the buck. We drag him back up, get him to the top of the hill and everything. We start looking, and Jason Holcomb, one of his arrows actually had a little bit of hair and some blood on it. So we were like, originally we were like, all right, well, we'll come back around. We know Hubbard has killed this buck, or put a good shot on it. So we drag the buck up to the top of the hill, get up, go to load it up in the truck, and we're looking at it, checking it out. And in the front hoof on the left leg, where back then we shot thunderheads, there was the perfect cut marks of a fixed blade, 3-blade, where Jason Holcomb had shot that deer through his hoof.
Wow.
He run through the planted pines, bedded up behind Jason Hubbard, and Jason Hubbard shot and killed that buck.
Wow.
See, I'll tell you what's funny is like,
I'd have
back in
mounted
the
that
day,
foot.
back in the day, Joel and I, we would hunt like that. We'd hunt, 60, 80 yards apart. There's a lot of times we could see each other. So you do the hand signals. Hey, this is a doe. This is a buck.
What is this? Because you're
So you would rub your
It's-
head.
nobody can see you.
So when you rub your head, that means it's a doe.
Like
Mallet
a slick
head.
Slick
Yeah.
head.
Slick head.
Yeah.
When you hold up fingers, that's a buck. And
Jackie Bushman will be
And
very
then
upset.
when you miss, you
when
put
when
the hand
miss,
gesture
you do
over
your
the back.
hand over the back or under the belly. Well, I had a doe come in at maybe 30 to 40 yards. Hell, I don't know.
Y'all
I
didn't
didn't
have
have my
cell phones back
rangefinder.
then?
No, it was hand signals. It was like caveman stuff. I shot at a doe, and I shot under her. And Joe's like, "What's going on?" I was like, under." He goes, "Okay." It wasn't 5 minutes later, I had a doe come up behind me at 5 yards, and I missed her.
Is this the one coming up the dim road, and I was trying to get your attention? Or is
No,
that a different
no.
time?
So that was the one at the milk crate stand.
Oh, okay. There's another one when you were looking the other way.
I killed one that time.
Yeah, you did.
I did kill one.
And
You
the-
missed.
Yeah.
You missed. That's considered a miss. So the story he's talking about after that one, we was hunting another spot and had a doe come in. I shot her. I smoked her.
Well, it was, yeah.
She probably went 30 yards. She went straight to Joel and fell over dead. The other deer that was with her went to Joel. Joel went to draw back, and his arrow literally fell off his bow, went through his stand, and hit the ground.
Ting, 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 ting.
It ran back to Duane.
So the deer come running back to me. At that time, I'm so excited because I just killed a doe, and I'm watching her dead on the ground. At that point, I'm so excited. I draw back, and I just totally missed the second one.
Swing and a miss.
'Cause
That was the old TM Hunter style rest.
Yeah, the
Where you-
launcher.
where you better not be turning your bow. You better draw it back smooth and
Yep.
and
If you were shaking any little bit,
yeah,
it would bounce.
It bounced right off and came right off. But
Y'all are going to run out of stories for this
I
podcast,
don't know.
by the way.
There's
I mean, that's been my luck with. I've had plenty of opportunities to kill 2 deer in a pile with a bow, but I messed it up either on the first deer or second deer. I messed it up. I get way too excited, get shaken, and I'll miss the first deer, but the second deer, I nail it. I mean, you could put a quarter on them and I nail it. Or the first deer, I'll just drill, and the second one, I'm so excited that I just killed one that I missed the second one.
Josh, have you shared a story yet?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
have.
Then
But let's hear. So, what's your most memorable?
What
Besides your 8-point?
besides the 8-point? Oh wow,
he just took your thunder right there.
I know he took my thunder. I had my 8-point
No,
story.
no,
I was keyed
no,
up
no.
right here.
He actually has one that his dad was with him to go find it the next morning. It was a 4-point, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I will tell you my most memorable hunting story that I have about, and I didn't even kill the deer.
with a partner.
Was with my dad actually. My dad actually doesn't. He's a meat hunter, which is kind of how I was brought up.
Right.
If it's legal, you're pulling
Yep.
the trigger. So
Especially on public land.
exactly. So
I'm not
he doesn't
against
really.
that some days now.
Oh, me either. So he doesn't kill many large deer just because if it's legal, it's getting shot.
Right.
So we were hunting on New Year's Eve day, and I hear him shoot like 5 times, just pow one time, and then boom, 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 real quick after that. And he has a cell phone that he doesn't know how to text on, so he calls me and he says, all he says is, I got blood and it's a legal buck. I said, okay. I said, well, let me come to you. So I climbed down into my tree and I head over to him and walk in the woods, and we had a ladder stand. We still have it out there, but it's set up for him to hunt out of. And he's standing about 40 yards in front of this ladder stand. It's just standing there. And I said, you got blood? Yeah. He said, I got blood right here. He said, it's a legal buck. It come up to a grunt call. He said, I grunted and I looked over and hear this buck come. He said, I got one shot when it was standing still and it turned to run, and I shot 4 more times. I said, okay. I said, well, where's the last blood? He said, it's right here. So we trailed this deer, and it was an old chopped field, it was straw hay field kind of with some oak trees in it. So we started trailing blood, and we went 40, 50 yards maybe, and kind of the blood dried up. And my dad, he said, well, I think it went this way. He pointed a certain way. He said, I'm pretty sure it went this way. I heard a bush shaking over there, or I saw a bush shaking over there. I said, okay. I said, well, I'm going to stay here on last blood. So he walks off. Well, I get to looking, and there's no deer track running that way. And I said, that buck didn't go that way. And I said, well, it didn't go west. There's no deer track that way. I said, it didn't run back north because it'll run right back by him in his stand. I said, this deer had to go east. And I turned and looked, and probably 10 yards, there's a buck laying there. And it is we actually mounted it on his wall for him.
It's a nice 8.
It is a very fine 8-point for public land. That deer weighed 150 pounds without its guts.
Wow.
At the check station when we had it weighed.
So
Just a
probably my best story with my
very
dad
large buck.
was probably around 80, 86, somewhere in there. My dad had retired from the military, but he was working he was civil service, and he had to go back to Fort Benning for a meeting. And, he was like, well, I'm going to go up there. I'm going to go hunt, and then do the meeting. I was like, well, I want to go. So I didn't own a rifle. I shotgun and bow hunted back then. And so I took my younger brother's 30-30. And so this was back, before tree stands were popular, and so my dad and I, we get out that morning, and, Dad says, why don't you go down this ridge, and go down and find you a place and pull up a stump, something. And I'm going to go around the other side of the ridge, and we'll hunt till about 9:30. Then I got to go to the meeting. We'll do the meeting. We'll come back. So I get down and end up climbing up in an oak tree and sitting on a limb. And so it was either sex, and a doe comes out, and I'm like, well, I'm going to shoot it, we're meat hunting. And so put the crosshairs on her, pull the trigger. She just kind of looks around, and I'm like, oh, son of a bitch, it's not on, So she runs off. So I take my pocket knife and I take the scope mounts off, put the scope mount in my pocket, and I'm like, I'm better off with iron sights. So I was sitting there about 20 minutes or so. It was like a herd. I mean, just a shit ton of deer comes around this ridge, and so I picked the first one. And I don't know, I would say it was probably 80, 90 yards, and I waited for the deer to come between two pine trees. When it comes between 2 pine trees, I shot, racked around through, shot again. Not knowing that I had hit it, and I'm like shooting. I shot 3 or 4 times at it, and it circles around, and it comes down by my tree, and I see the hole, and it where it's bleeding at, and I'm like, oh, it like piles up in a bush in front of me. My dad's old school, you shoot 3 times, that means you're in trouble. Well, he knows that his son shot 3 times, so I hear Doug, and Dad, he's running, cooking in there, running down the hill, he's like, and I'm like, I'm over here, and he goes, are you all right? And I was like, yeah, why? You shot 3 times, and I said, no, I shot a deer. And he was like, really? And I was like, no, I'm telling you, it's like right there in the bush, right there. I saw it go in the bush, and it didn't come out, so Dad walks over there, and he says, it's not here. It's not here. And I like dive out of the tree. I'm like, oh, I know it's there. I dive out of the tree, and he's like, calm down. It's there, And he says, all right, well, you killed it. You're going to gut it. And I'm like, okay, So I am like fired up, and it ended up being like a 1-inch spike, on both sides. I'm fired up. So Dad hands me his knife, and so we roll it over, and Dad's holding the rear legs apart, and I'm just, my arms shaking, just
Stabbing the shit out
Right.
of that deer.
and so my dad's like, he goes, oh, hold on now, hold on. He says, give me that damn knife before you cut yourself, and he's like, yeah, you just go sit down, I'll take care of this, I was like, yeah, that worked.
I think we could all share stories for hours and hours upon
So one of the things that I want to go to
yeah, let's hear it.
is, so everybody that's not seeing this, Shane had to leave. He had to go pick up a kid.
Parent thing.
Yeah, had to be a dad.
Yeah.
So what I would like from you guys is, what are you looking for out of the podcast? What's your vision? What do you want to do with this?
I would love to start on that. I saw a very good quote actually from, I'll back up and I'll get to the quote in a minute. Like I said earlier, when we were doing our introductions, I want to kind of show people what quote unquote real hunting is from people who work a 40-hour week. And
So you're going to do an OnlyFans account?
yes,
No.
Hold on.
it's actually
Hold on.
TikTok.
So-
Actually,
I want to hear an eye of who actually works a 40-hour work week here.
me.
I get paid for a 40-hour work week.
Back to my original point. Like I said before, the Jackie Bushmans of the world,
Right.
David Blanton, Michael Waddell, those are great guys. I'm sure they're great guys. I've never met them personally. I'm sure they're great people. But the farms in the Midwest and the Milk River in Montana is probably something a lot of us sitting here probably will never, ever have a chance to hunt. I'm looking forward to showing people what kind of I grew up in with real hunting is. People hunting public land and dealing with people and having people walk in on you. And I'm sure we'll get to all those stories about
Yeah,
the
we-
horror
Oh yeah,
stories.
we'll have the
horror
stories
land,
of public land hunting.
but it's also to show people that are trying to get into hunting. Like I was trying to start with, I heard a good quote that says, people that are trying to get into hunting, what's a good piece of advice for them? And it's, don't compare yourself to anyone else on social media. Because everybody here has social media. We've got it with Flobama Outdoors, which we'll get into probably what that is in another episode. But we post pictures of bucks and things like that. But I think that kind of drives people off in a way about wanting to get into hunting. So if a spike is legal and they shoot a spike, but all they see on social media is 150-inch Boone and Crockett bucks, they may feel inferior, like, well, I'm not hunting the quote right way because I'm not killing a big buck. No, I was perfectly happy with my first buck. As
Social
a 3-point.
media is probably the worst thing that's ever happened to the hunting community.
Fishing as well. Fishing and hunting, it's horrible.
I mean, and so
and I remember all of us have talked about the check station and
Right.
hunting and seeing those Polaroid pictures. I remember I was just as happy to get my picture taken with a 5-point, a spike, a 3-point, whatever's legal, and
A
have
doe.
that sitting there. A
A doe,
absolutely.
exactly.
right.
But
I
now
love getting
you see people
Well-
post pictures of a spike or a 5-point or a doe, and
Somebody's got some shit to say
all the
about it.
hate comments and the shit
So-
on social media of, oh, you didn't kill it. What'd you kill it with? Did you shoot it with a gun? Because if you didn't shoot it with a bow, you're on shit. You got to shoot it with a bow, and you have to be, whatever this. That's horrible.
So as I was driving around, and all of this came about because I spent a lot of time on the road, and I would listen to music, and music's just pretty much gone to shit. I don't care if you listen to country or rap or it's just crap. And I got away from the music thing and started listening to talk radio, and talk radio is all politics and the COVID bullshit and all of that, and so I started listening to podcasts, and like none of the podcasts out there really represented me. I mean, there are, I'm not saying none, there are some. There's the Southern, I think it's the Southern Sportsman Outdoors, something like that, at the same time, these guys are hunting a lot of private leases, private property, and so and I told you guys this when I asked you guys about doing this, was I want this to be about hunting, and I don't care what it is. If it's legal, if you can legally throw a rock, if you can legally spear something, hey man, that's it.
If it makes you happy,
Right?
it's
You know,
legal. Absolutely. Be proud of it.
I've got friends that they act like if you don't do anything other than bow hunt, well, you know, you're shit. You know, you may get out there and only hunt 5 days. He may only get out there and hunt 5 days, Tony. And so when you listen
Sorry,
to this,
Tony.
but you know, I'm not about like. So there is a video that Michael Waddell put out, and there's not a ton of your celebrity hunters that I would say I gel with. That Michael Waddell, man, he puts out that, I don't know if y'all have seen the video talking about we're our own worst enemy. You know,
You're right.
the horn shaming somebody. That buck was only 2.5 years old. He was only 3.5 years old. You know, but you know what, dude? Where I'm hunting at, 3.5 years old. That's a lucky
deer.
son of a bitch.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, because he's made it through gun seasons after gun season after gun season. It's so that.
But here's your point. So,
so-
that's on public land. You know, on public land, you know, yes. You know, on a lot of private lands, people can let deer get older.
Right.
You know, and that's where a lot of that shame comes from, because a lot of them big guys, they're hunting that private land to where deer are able to grow to be 5, 6, 7 years old to get their maturity level. So when you kill something on public land that's 3 years or older, you're lucky. I mean, you really are lucky.
That is a trophy deer.
Exactly. Well, and I don't even look at that as a trophy. It's if it's legal and you kill it and you're excited about it, that's your trophy. It don't matter if it's a doe, if it's illegal where you're at. If you're allowed to kill a cow horn, if that's what you want to kill, that's your trophy.
And I can tell you that, I mean, every one of us here know this. At the very beginning, we started talking. Somebody had brought up, I think it was Shane, about some of the bucks that we've got on cameras, and you're like, where the hell did that deer come from? And straight up off of public land, and I'm talking very highly pressured public land.
Mm-hmm.
Those deer are smart as shit when they get that big.
Even when they're not that big.
But who makes them smart?
And everybody sitting here can tell y'all, or can contest to the fact that, man, I had like some bruisers. For public land last year, I had some freaking studs. And I thought, and I've had many conversations with Joel. Joel's like, dude, you are on them. You've got them figured out. Mm-hmm. The son of a bitch never showed up.
No.
But you may tell you why.
One time.
Who makes a deer smart?
The hunter does.
And why is that?
Because they
pattern
spend too
us.
much time in there.
Yep.
Pattern us as much as we
I
try
mean,
to
and that's
pattern them.
on my list of a podcast segment
yeah.
is
We'll get
not
to
so much
scouting.
pattern deer, but deer pattern people. But so my vision for this is no shaming. I don't care if you crossbow hunt, Duane.
Josh.
If all you do is rifle
hate.
hunt, Joel. You know,
Now, in our defense, now for years past, Josh and I we've been really big archery hunters. This last year, we had a chance to get a couple crossbows on a good deal. We got them, and that was our goal. It was like, look, we've killed deer with shotguns, rifles, bows. Let's kill some with a crossbow.
I mean, if it's
Just
legal
to
to do
try
it
it.
with dynamite, I'm not gonna bash you for it because it's legal.
No, it is.
You know,
we both did it. I'll be honest with you.
It was fun as shit, wasn't it?
Oh, it was fun as hell.
Yes.
It's a totally different ball game because you feel. I mean, it's a cross between rifle and bow. You know, you put a scope on them, but you still got to figure out the yardage.
Right.
You know, so it's
Well,
totally
and
different.
everybody thinks that crossbows have this unlimited yardage on them.
No,
you know?
they don't.
So, I mean, the reality is that you can shoot a vertical bow further than you can a crossbow.
All right, so let me admit
Because your
this.
crossbow is being shot with a scope, and you've only got so many dots. You know, I
right, so
guess you could get to the point you
let me
can
admit
figure it
this.
out.
So I got picked to go into a specialty hunt on public land this year.
We should save that for another podcast.
No, this because this is for crossbow.
Did you get drawn for the?
Yep.
I had a big 9
That's
point.
edited. That's gone.
I had a big 9 point coming in, and I grinded him
This
up.
entire story.
I
is
watched him
getting
come in
edited,
for
by the way.
150 yards. I had him come in. The sun was coming up.
We're done telling stories.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are. this whole
Anyways.
conversation.
Mute
is
his
gonna
mic. Mute.
Let's just say I missed a big 9 point with a crossbow,
be- We've moved
looking
on.
through a scope.
We've moved on to what do you want out of the podcast?
So
Thank you.
Well, I'm
So
gonna
you can
speak-
miss
I'm
with
gonna
anything.
speak up. Okay.
Thank you, Joel
So,
Hoskins.
You can miss.
so
You
what
can
I
miss.
want
We're cutting
out of
you
this
off.
podcast
Go ahead.
is to be able to kind of explain the process of like what we do and how we're, like how we try to, like what we look for and how we try to be successful.
Right.
And just kind of like what we've learned through being boneheads and messing up, and
Right, and-
anything we can do to try to help other people is kind of my thing.
I mean, we're not. I mean, by any stretch of the imagination, these
we're not professionals.
right. We're not going out and killing 130-inch bucks every year. We're going out and killing good public land bucks
For
you know,
Florida.
For Florida,
I mean, I've hunted public land in other states. We hunted Georgia.
right?
It seemed easier
In Georgia,
in Georgia.
the first. Well, I say that.
Right.
Well, we say that, and neither one of us has killed a buck since our first year hunting there.
But we seen bucks,
Oh,
and we killed.
well,
those
and we
bucks.
chose to bow hunt in a primitive weapons. Where if we'd
Right.
had our muzzle loaders, we would have killed.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
a quality deer in Florida is different than a quality deer in Georgia, Alabama. I mean, I've seen huge bucks come out of Alabama. I've hunted Kentucky. I've hunted Indiana. And we're going to go to Ohio this year.
Coming soon, Ohio.
Right. and don't think it won't be hard if a
well, it's all relative to where you're at.
120-inch deer walks out. I'm like, that's a big fucking deer.
So,
But let me ask you this: so that 120-inch deer, if that's a trophy to you,
oh, I'll shoot it.
you
for
shoot
sure.
it.
I'm shooting.
And we're going to back you.
If I'm happy
100%.
with the deer, I don't care if I only got one
Right.
buck tag.
I don't care if you're 40
Well-
years old and you kill a 50-inch deer. If it's a 4-point and you're happy about it, I got your back.
And I'm not, I'm by no means am I going to. Do I mean this in a way to shame anybody but Jamie and I have a buddy that hunts where we hunt at, and he only comes and hunts where we hunt at just to be able to get out in the woods, because he goes to Illinois and hunts. And he said, you can go to Illinois. Hunting the Midwest is simple compared to hunting the South, hunting the
that'll
Panhandle,
spoil you.
Florida. And, and he's like, well, you'll sit there and watch 5, 10, 120, 130-inch bucks in a week. That's not what he's after. But those people that we met, the television celebrity hunters, there's a few of them out there that kind of do what we do.
Well, see,
But-
that's the thing. Not to bash a single person's name, but all like you said, the celebrity hunters, and not to say a single person, but we've all have talked about it amongst ourselves or in our minds, like, hey, y'all come to Florida.
yeah, I was,
Y'all
gonna,
come to Northwest
I
Florida
was
on
thinking the
public
same
land.
thing.
What can y'all kill down here?
Yeah, come out here and put yourself on a level
here,
playing field
we'll-
with us and see what you
Let's
do.
see what you can kill.
And
It's
that's why I
rough.
said it's
It is
relative
hard.
to where you're at. Personally, I mean, if I'm gonna talk about let's say my top 3 or 4 big buck killers, like just every year after year, just smoking them. I'm gonna go with the Lee Lukoski, the Mark Drury, number 1. And
absolutely.
Mark has been doing it for how many years? Just Kiski.
I know you.
Don Kiski, Stan Potts. These are guys that year after year,
Yeah, they know how to
year
kill
after
big
year, they're doing it. Now you take Don Kiski and Lee Lukowski, they both have big farms, so they're able to. It's a different story. It's not the public land.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to
keep
talk
the pressure off of them.
my idol is Kip from Red Arrow.
Yeah.
dude is like, I mean, you want to talk about somebody that could sit in this chair right here and carry on a conversation like we're talking. Dude, I mean, that's the guy.
What were the two dudes from? I think they were from Pennsylvania. It was a father and son. He had a big gray beard. God, I can't think of their names, but those guys would hunt, and they didn't kill big deer. They were, and this was
Right.
up in the up north somewhere. But,
Well, it's PA. PA is like North Florida.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. I can't think of their names, but that was a show or videos back
Yeah.
then. Wasn't a show. That watching them, I'm like, those dudes are like hunting like we hunt.
Right.
It's definitely different than
And
seeing
that Kip Campbell, that dude is like, it cracks me up with his does. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Oh.
Don't do it. Nope, you blew. You
Yep.
got to die, And he doesn't have a problem with killing that 120-inch buck because he just likes swacking shit. And that's where I'm at. I enjoy it. I will say that a lot of the reasons that I think Jamie and I get the bucks on camera that we do now is because even before the horn restrictions that are in place where we hunt, Jamie and I were very
Yeah.
if we didn't need to kill anything, if we weren't killing something for meat, we would let those walk. I mean, Jeff, oh my God, son, I could tell you 100 stories where Jeff would just flip out because I would send him a picture, and I'd have 3 or 4 does and like a 4-point or something around my stand. He'd be like, shoot it. No, I'm good. I don't need to.
See, and we've done that. I've had a 7-point, years ago that I had a chance to shoot him one afternoon and the very next morning. You watch deer, and with us, with the way we put cameras out, the way we scout, when you start seeing deer and you start kind of figuring them out a little bit, you can notice what deer is what. Just by their reaction, by their posture in the pictures or scars or whatever. And it gets where you're like, well, I'm gonna let this one walk. It's people a lot of days now want to shame on people for killing what they think is a trophy. If it's a legal deer and they had all legal means of killing it, why shame them for it? Be
No,
happy.
I agree. And
Rather they killed it with
social media has been like, it's just stupid.
It's hurting the hunting industry. If it was legal,
It's
whether it was
hurting.
a bow, a shotgun, a rifle. Who cares? Be happy for them.
Well, and what is the draw if you're just starting out in hunting? What is your draw to wanting to share your excitement? I mean,
you don't want to because you worry about somebody shaming you.
right?
Exactly.
And it doesn't go, and it's not just what you kill. So we talked about this before the podcast. We can get into, the fanboys and saddle hunting. 4 of the 6 of us here are into saddle hunting. We all hunt out of 3 different brands, but saddle hunting it's stupid. The people you get on the Facebook pages of saddle hunting and saddle hunting and so sticks. Your climbing sticks. If you are not spending $500, $400 on 3 or 4 sticks, well, dude, what are you doing?
Well, it's the same thing with bows.
It is.
Matthews.
So
not just
don't even let me get started on the fanboys in Matthews.
Right.
I
shoot a Matthews.
I shoot a Matthews too.
I shoot a Matthews also.
And
So
I'm
does
just
Jamie.
gonna
So
throw it
does
out
Joel.
there that there's a bunch of Matthews guys that need their man cards removed. I don't get the whole. Yeah, man, you are buying a $1,200 bow to kill an animal. Why the fuck do you need
The moonshine's kicked in.
Why do you need a fluorescent string
I need another shot.
that matches your fluorescence balancer button shit and your
Well, it
you know,
matches the sticker on the back of their truck.
Well, and and so when I bought this bow, and I will say this is the first year I've hunted with a Matthews. I've hunted with a Bowtech for
They're fucking
how
awesome.
many years? So
Bowtech or Matthews?
Matthews.
yeah, so when I went and bought this Matthews,
Well,
and
the people on YouTube are getting to see that because it's right there.
right, yeah. So when I bought that bow, and the guy at the pro shop, he's setting it up, and he's like, "Well, what colors, D-loop you want?"
Hot pink. What do you think?
Black. Now, I don't care. He goes, what color serving do you want? I honestly I didn't understand it. Why the fuck are you asking me this?
Yeah, people like you had black, That was
Right,
what
just
you
black.
got.
Yeah, I mean, I can
So,
I can
so
pull
are y'all
out.
gonna pick on me next tomorrow morning when I go drop my
If
bow
you
off?
have
and I want
fluorescent
neon
shit,
green and black.
yes,
Oh, we're fucking with you.
yes.
Neon
We will.
green and black.
Doesn't mean we don't
Yes.
love you. Doesn't mean we don't love you.
You'll have to sit outside while we tape this podcast.
Why can't I
Yeah.
neon green and black?
No, I'm gonna give you hell because you don't talk into the mic after you've had too many to drink.
Yes, that too.
Orange
I want
creamsicle.
neon green and black.
I think we're
So
all.
so anyway, so that goes, like the whole shaming. I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's stupid. And if you are shaming people over the way they hunt and what they used to hunt, you
What?
probably are a
Yes.
spoiled little shit that you don't even need to be hunting anyway.
Got to hunt big bucks all the time.
The whole thing about shaming is people's perception is what it boils down to. And what they don't understand is, well, this is this person's way of hunting.
Thank you, Joel, for making him speak into the microphone.
So their perception is this is this person's way of hunting. This is their method, and they want to make fun of it because it's not their way. It's not their idea of it. So why shame them on it? If it's a legal means and everything's good about, why
Right.
shame them?
Exactly.
So I'm making.
That's like we could do a whole
I'll
whole
make-
podcast on baiting.
But I mean, y'all messed with me earlier for shooting with a crossbow.
That's
last
cool.
year.
It's
No,
more fun.
so there's
He killed
There's a
more deer with a
different-
crossbow last year than I did.
You see how big that motherfucker is?
He's only 6'6".
he's only 6'6".
I'm 5'8".
Hey,
That's
but
two of me.
Take
He-
him out at kneecap.
hold on a
He's
second.
shorter than-
He is 6'6", and he gets to open carry anytime he wants to.
You can too.
Yes.
Let me tell you what you can do. Put a fishing pole in your truck. You can open carry anytime you want to.
Yeah, that's semantics.
No. That's
I know
that's
it's
the
true.
law.
Yeah,
So I'm. Here's my goal for this year,
right.
or come hunting season.
Talking
Kill a
to the
doe.
mic.
It's already
Is-
it's already hunting season now. You should be setting cameras out.
You should be hunting in South Florida right now.
Now I will
think I
say
wouldn't
I
give it a
will
look.
say that this morning, if it wasn't a work day, this morning was nice.
Yeah.
It-
I'd have been out there.
It
So,
was. I was-
so I do
I
have
was
a
out checking
question.
them
I
out.
do have a question
Well,
for y'all guys.
let me.
Oh, let him.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. And I'll go ahead.
So my goal this hunting season is anytime because we
Get
like
in
to.
a word outside of Duane.
Yes. Because anytime we go to the check station, anytime a deer pulls up, there's a deer on the back of a truck, we go check it out. But my plan or my goal is to congratulate every person I see with a deer in the back of
Right.
the truck. Big deer, little deer, whatever. Like
Yeah, I
that's
mean-
the fun part to me is hanging around that check station and talking to the dudes that come up with deer.
Yeah, I mean, you did it last year. You were high fiving that dude with the spotted fawn, like
That's a tasty little deer right there, boy.
rotisserie.
Tender.
Make hunting fun again.
Right.
Joel. How many times
Speaking
have
on
you
that, like everybody in podcast land, if you don't listen to Make Hunting Great, or if you don't follow Make Hunting Great Again on Instagram, go do it now. That dude is on point with all the BS in the hunting industry. So go ahead.
And to me, I've never lost the fun of hunting. I've always enjoyed it. I've always had a group of buddies or family that I've hunted with. But I would hate to be 18 or 19 years old with the social media and the
Exactly.
shaming to try to, like Joel did at 17 or 18 years old, or even Jamie at 30, to get into hunting right now. I'm so glad that social media and even cell phones weren't a thing when I was coming up in hunting.
Yeah, fair enough.
Shooting every small legal buck I saw. I mean, that was so fun.
When
Hold on.
I mean,
What do you
really.
mean? What do you mean
Ask
was?
Joel.
That still is.
I mean, but like when I first started hunting, I didn't care what it. I mean, a 5-inch spike. I mean,
I
that
just
was,
wanted to put an
no.
arrow through a deer.
And I mean,
Ask
the shakes,
Joel.
the buck fever was just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, even with a doe, especially with a bow.
Well, I'm 52 years old, and every
motherfucker, boy.
animal
36.
every animal I kill. Now I don't get the shakes ahead of time. I'm fortunate in that I don't, but like after the shot, I mean, this is a lot of what I sound like.
Is he down? Is he down? Did you see him go down? Did you see him go down? Did you see him go down? Did you see him go? Did I smoke him? Did I smoke him?
And this is all you speaking
Is
to
he down,
yourself.
Hunter?
Yes.
Is he down?
Is he down? Is he
Is he down?
I'm glad I'm not the only one that does that.
I do. So like, and Jamie can can contest to this, that after I shoot one, I'll call him. He knows he could be sitting at the house and not even know I'm hunting, and I call him, and he can hear the.
The voice is like,
Because usually I'm still in my stand, and it's like, dude,
like a 70s porno.
I just smoked one. Yeah, I think I see it though. No, that's a mushroom.
I will say, I know your feeling. Ask Joel when I called him on my phone when I killed my big 9-point on Eglin.
No, I do
yeah.
it. I don't.
That's-
It's not even a 9-point. I'll just whack a doe.
No,
Yeah, I do that with the doe.
no, I do it with a doe too, but when I killed the 9-point that we had been scouting,
Yeah, that was a
months-
special deer though.
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was special. And
You
when I
don't-
shot
no,
him
don't
and I
tell-
called
hey,
Joel,
hey,
I was like,
You got to save that for another podcast. You're gonna run out of stories. We're trying to.
Oh, there's
no, there's
We're 3 hours in.
save plenty of stories.
We're gonna save. the
I can
stories.
tell you that the day that I swack one and I don't have the shakes, I'm gonna have to find an. I'm either gonna hang up my bow or find a different way of hunting.
So let me be honest. So that's the difference between hunting public and private land.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
every time I was fixing to say something, Duane, can you just mute?
I didn't hear you.
So
He's
no,
Here's the thing, like how you say you're not like you don't get super like nervous and until you shoot or whatever.
Yep.
Like that's how I am. Like I can watch one and I'm perfectly fine watching one, but the minute I decide I'm fixing to shoot,
oh, yes.
I come inside out. Like
Oh.
I can't breathe right. I'm shaking and it's not even cold. I'm like I'm all kind of messed up.
So, like seeing a doe when you can only shoot bucks, you're like, oh, that's
Yeah,
a,
I'm
that's a
fine.
nice
Yeah.
deer.
But the
seeing
minute
a doe during archery
in my
season, you're like,
mind,
oh, shit.
nope.
the minute in my mind, I'm like, even if it's a decent buck, or whatever it is, the minute I say I'm gonna shoot, like it's immediate, like just adrenaline.
See, and I'm different than that. So like I'll be sitting in my stand, and we've got horn restrictions. So let's say a 4-point. That 4-point will come in front of me, and I'll start watching him, and I'll start getting the shakes. No, I can't kill him. There's nothing. I mean, but I'll start getting the shakes, and inevitably that son of a bitch will look at you. He'll look.
He can
up
hear
at
you. You're shaking the leaves.
Right, you're like
That pine tree's shaking
so,
like a motherfucker.
So am I the only one that you'll be looking at a deer and the deer looks up at you and you look away? Like I'm
No.
not gonna look
Can't
that
make
deer in the
contact.
eye. I'm
No
not
eye
gonna do it.
contact.
Never do.
No eye
You-
contact.
I kind of look away, and sometimes I kind of squint my eyes and just kind of
Like,
look through my
through your
eyelashes.
eyelashes?
I look through my eyelashes. I'm telling you, they can see the white in your eyes. You're done.
you guys are so
they
weird.
know if you make eye contact.
Yeah, they're like,
They
"That's
know.
look, you that son of a bitch."
He's looking at
me.
Yep.
It's like,
He
if I can't
sees
see
me.
you, you
He
can't
sees
see
me.
me. I'm
Right.
looking
It's like a
at the-
kid, like you were scared of monsters. Well, if I pull the covers over my head, he can't get me.
Or your
so,
little puppy shits on the floor and looks away like, what?
it wasn't me.
And he ain't looking at me. I didn't do it.
I'm 42, and I was just kind of scared when them dogs came out here. But we can edit that if we need to.
Well, for everybody out there in podcast land, my fiance makes reborn dolls. They're very, very, very lifelike. And
Very.
Extremely.
That's very spooky.
We should put
We're gonna put
right,
one in Joel's truck.
right in the middle of the table next time.
I won't be here.
I'm done.
Interesting. Well, gentlemen, we've been at it for what?
an hour and 52 minutes.
That's it. Oh,
Yeah.
we did a lot of bullshit.
We did a lot
before
of
that.
lot of
Yeah.
talk beforehand, trying to figure out.
So what do we have on tap for next episode's podcast? Next episode. I'm putting you on the spot here, Doug, because I could pull my email out and I could ask Joel too. But
I would like to talk like some preseason
So funny
scouting
you say
type.
that. So our next episode is going to be we're going to talk summer preseason scouting,
Joel,
Yeah.
there you go.
and then
That means you and I need to get in the woods because
That means
No, we
Joel
don't need to.
Hoskins
Just let these guys
actually
talk.
go
Right.
get in the woods.
we'll probably. I mean, I don't know if we can spend an hour talking about that. We probably can.
Yeah.
Dwayne could probably eat up 45 minutes of that.
Yeah. We just need to like mute it. Can we have a remote like where we can like mute him? Every now?
We can do that.
I mean, I got an on-air button over
Yes.
here. I can just click. So yeah, and then I imagine preseason scouting we can roll in cameras. We can discuss cell cameras. What ideas?
It's Miller time.
Yeah.
Saturday night. Son. You get ice in your butt crack?
Oh my lord!
Wait, get your hands out of your pants. What are you? Oh my God!
What are we doing? It's right there.
If the cameras are still rolling, you'll see this on the YouTube channel. But
Oh my gosh, dude!
Did you shit out an ice cube? That's amazing. Don't put. Oh. It was in his butt crack, and he put it back in the cooler.
It has went into the pants and back into the beer cooler.
That's my last beer.
My lord, yeah.
And the beer tastes like shit.
But I think we can.
what?
They will now.
Oh,
I was gonna say these Miller Lights have been tasting good.
They are.
all
They're
night
better.
long. I think we can make a couple hours out of preseason scouting. I know most of us here do that. All
and
of
I
us here
think
do that.
I think I had a list of topics that we discuss and everything, and I really think that the preseason scouting, the summer scouting, and cameras probably would roll into, even though there's a whole different. Everybody's got their own opinions on how to and where to put cameras this time of the year.
Be interesting to see, hear everybody's opinions. I mean, even all of us who put them out together, we all still kind of have different ideas on kind of what we're looking at.
We have actually argued, and almost I've watched two people almost come into a fist fight over where to put a trail camera one morning.
Let me ask you
Well,
this:
so
like as a teaser to talking about that, how many cameras do you own, Josh?
I think I have 9 right now.
Don't start talking about the cameras
How,
we own.
all right, how many cameras you got?
I got 18.
Good God, how many you got?
I got 6, but we have another 10 that is unaccounted for.
They're still out in the woods, or they got burnt up?
No, they're ones that we can use.
You know how many I got?
How many?
3. That's it. 3.
I got that many in this room filming you right now.
That's because I have
So-
friends that have 18, however many. 6.
Well, here's the
plus
thing.
10.
I mean, we all share information. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So
But
like,
so with Flobama,
and we just keep jumping around
there's 5
all
of
over.
us, and only 4 of us really do a lot of scouting where we hunt out on public land.
There's how many of you?
There's 5.
3, 4. I see. There were 4.
So
Where's the missing link?
he's the
That-
fisher.
that's
He's the fisherman of the group.
Oh, it's summertime.
We can bring him on another podcast.
He hunts in Texas, and he don't hunt public.
So
Oh,
He's
So-
an out-of-state hunter. I
So-
think we have a podcast
There you
about
go.
that, by the way.
we do. Hey,
we
well,
we
bring
do
him in.
See?
we do, yeah, and he can like feed us beers and everything and be our little bitch.
Yeah, so
Well, he is going on a nice elk hunting trip. this
he
year,
is.
So I
He
would,
is. And we will actually be in Ohio when he goes on his elk hunting trip.
And that's on the list. We're going to do a remote podcast from Ohio around the campfire.
So
Joel, you going to be there?
no,
Probably not.
Hey, I've got an empty seat
Not
in
this year.
in the Tacoma.
it will be the 4 of us plus his brother.
Right.
Who is him?
Doug's brother.
There we go.
My brother.
I pointed.
Hey, pointing.
They
is doing
can't see that on
Can't see
podcast.
that. We got to get used to podcasting.
Speak into the microphone.
That too.
So I think
I can't get no closer.
I think I've got 11 cameras
I got 3.
and 1, 2,
But so
How many cell cameras?
5,
1.
6.
See, I haven't
So are
haven't
y'all still
graduated
gonna
to
go
cell
to
camera
Ohio?
yet.
And the only reason I went to cell cameras because I got drawn for that hunt as well,
The
and I used some of his so I could see deer, and I ended up
Alright,
killing a
so-
nice buck out there.
So let me tell you about this.
no.
Here we
No.
Here we go again. Just cut him off.
There's gonna
Edit.
be people.
We're gonna edit all that out.
Y'all can't be advertising.
No.
Period. You know what I'm saying?
Well, isn't it the
It don't matter what group it is.
It
There
doesn't
will be no
matter. Look-
group,
look.
special clothes, nothing.
It's a
Do
group of
y'all know how many motherfuckers are going to be putting in for this?
Yeah, we'll never get drawn.
There's no deer on the
Well, this
all
is
this
getting
block
edited
is
out
getting
anyways.
edited anyhow.
I'm
so.
glad we can edit this whole thing out.
So yeah, I've got five or six cell cameras. I've got Moultrie. I've got 4 Moultries and 1 of those micro whatever spy point
Yeah.
shit cameras. I don't know. I mean,
It was probably
used
what,
it-
$50, $60.
I actually got it on sale for $48,
Right.
which is it's not bad. And Moultrie, I don't know what they are doing other than screwing themselves, but their first camera that they put out, that V or X7000 or whatever, was the bomb. That was the first one that I had. And I've had that for about 3 years, and then they went to that 6000, and it sucks ass. And
Well, I have a spy point.
yeah, you've got the same one I got.
Yeah.
So
Well, again, that's a whole nother episode.
Right.
So
Yes.
we could go around in circles for hours.
all right.
Anything else? Are you
Look-
ever going to have an opportunity, if anyone ever listens to this madness, for people to call in?
So yeah, what I'll probably do is on our social media outlets between us and maybe Floribama,
Yes.
either offer some call-in opportunities or some questions. Put a post to post your questions.
Right.
Comment. Tell us what you want. What are you looking for?
Because we could sit here and talk
We could.
forever,
I mean,
but it'd be nice
So-
to kind of hear.
So for those of us that, or for those of you that aren't with us, we literally started this at 6:00 and it's 10 after 10. and we're 2 hours and 1 minute into podcast.
Yes.
Well, here's the drawback: is you all live here. I have to drive like an hour.
Yeah. Don't be a crybaby.
Just saying.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: we want questions from everybody else out that hunts the public land.
You look like you. How many beers you drink? Your eyes get squinty.
I got contact. But no, we want to hear from the audience. You know, what questions do y'all have about hunting public land, whether it's, you know, Northwest Florida, South Alabama, or anywhere else? You know, what questions do y'all have? Because it's pretty hard hunting down here on public land.
That's
Yeah,
no
if you
joke.
got any questions about, poison pods or anything like that, Duane could probably point you in the
If you hit them in the foot, they run 30 yards and fall over dead.
right. Which is, believe it or not, Mississippi is still legal.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Hey, at some
Crazy.
point we need to talk about like what everybody does. Like, what do you do for a living? And why do you get to hunt so much or not hunt as much as you want to?
We don't know.
Mine's probably easy. I mean, what was his name? The singer. Who was it that
You
he
need
was
to be a
sing?
little more.
He was the lead singer for Van Halen. Was it Van Halen? And he went out on his own.
Can we draw a picture?
You,
I deliver
Blonde
bread.
headed guy,
oh my God,
David
Lee Roth.
David Lee Roth.
Do you even
So
know,
he-
you even know who Van Halen is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know who David Lee Roth is?
Yeah.
So
So Sammy Hagar wasn't always the lead singer to Van Halen.
Sammy Hagar was never the lead singer of Van
Whatever.
Halen. And
He
if
can't
you-
drive 55.
If you thought that the Van Halen days, the Hagar days, they sucked. David was the man. But anyways, he put out my theme song.
And what's that?
Just a gigolo and everywhere I go.
Fucking, you're gonna starve. Well, gentlemen, anything
Is
else?
that it? Are we done?
Dude, that was fun.
It was good.
Just sitting around drinking beer, talking shit.
We'll
Yeah.
see how it comes out on the other end. You know,
Right? All right.
Once it's edited down.
we're all sitting around here.
It'll be
We're
20
gonna have a
minutes long.
solid 20 seconds.
That's
All
Joel's
myself.
sex wife.
That's edited.
What
So you're
part?
gonna
We can't be having lies told.
What?
10 seconds, not 20. Don't make him
Oh.
look better than he is.
Oh.
Are you gonna send us out with "These Are My People"?
Please.
Are you all
I
right?
kind of like that.
Y'all done?
That kind of fired me
I
up.
think that's a wrap for episode 1.
All right.
I'm happy with it.
Well done, gentlemen.
Yes,
When this
sir.
hits, give us a like button, give us a follow, and tell us what you think. And we'll catch you on the next one.
This is my land. This is my land. This is what we prayed for. And this is God's plan. This is God's plan. And if you ain't from here, then you won't understand. You won't understand. This is my country. This is who I am. welcome to my house. So welcome to my house. These are my people, and this is my land. This is my land. This is what we pray for, and this is God's plan.